I usually have you all stand up and do some kind of a funky exercise. I think a couple of years ago I had you turn around and try to meet your neighbor, and that always results in like your person is the person with the creepy eyes and the halitosis issue. I think last year we did the bouncy. Remember the bouncy exercise? And there's always somebody that has to run off stage because they've crapped their pants with that one. So we won't do that, but it actually is a very special day today. What day is it today? Let me know. It's Father's Day. Anybody in here a dad? All right, everybody, dads, stay down. Everybody else, stand up. Give all the dads in here a big, big hand. A big, big hand. Yes, 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 for all the dads in here. Yeah, that's my dad up there in that photo reading me a book. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but I was a real nerd growing up. I was homeschooled in the backwoods of North Idaho, K through 12. My prom is very lonely. I just kind of slow dance with myself. I read a lot. I learned a lot. I loved to study. As a matter of fact, my dear father, who passed about 4 months ago, one of the very last things that he said to me before he died was question everything. Question everything. And I'm very proud of all of you, and I want to congratulate all of you for being here right here, because you are the individuals who are questioning the status quo when it comes to your health and your health optimization, the way you treat your body, and how you're equipping yourself to have the best lifespan and health span to achieve the purpose that God has put you on this planet to achieve. So give yourselves a big hand also for being here right now, today. I also read a lot, I learned a lot, and that is still what I love to do. As a matter of fact, one of the favorite parts of my job is walking on that treadmill or sitting in my bed or on the back porch like I am at 15 years old there down in tiny Lucin, Idaho, reading and learning with a big smile on my face, because I know that I get to get someone way smarter than me on a podcast for 90 minutes a couple of times a week to feed me through the fire hose on amazing information that I can then turn around and deliver to you. And so when Tim asked me if I could come speak at this year's summit, I always talk to you guys about something new. I always give a talk that I've never given before, and I thought, gosh, it would be cool to just share, if you guys are up for it, some of the biggest takeaways that I learned from some of my best of the best podcast guests this year. Is that cool? How many of you in here listen to the podcast, listen to the narcissistically titled Ben Greenfield Life Show? I need to change that at some point. It'd be very humble of me. There's 6 H's, right? I learned that alliteration is a very sexy thing these days. So 6 H's that I'm going to talk to you about today. Your heart, your home, hormesis, hunger, hustle, and hush. And if Tim would have given me more than 40 minutes, I would have done Hershey's and ho-ho snacks, but we're just going to stick with 6 for now. I'm going to teach you some of the biggest things that have affected my life over the past year, over 2024, in terms of what I've learned from podcast guests. Now, I'm going to go back on my slides here just a second, because many of you haven't been to one of my presentations. I see you writing furiously and giving yourself carpal tunnel. Don't worry. All of the resources, the slides, the presentation, the research for you tinfoil hat wearing freaks, it's all there at bengreenfieldlife.com/HOS 2024. If you just want to download it all and dive in later on to any of the podcasts I mentioned, anything like that. We are going to start off with the heart. The heart is very important, as anybody who has seen the hamburger heart attack scene in Dumb and Dumber knows. Right? Am I going to date myself here? Pills are good. Pills are good. Don't worry, I know CPR. Check, please. So your heart is very important, as we all know, but I have learned some very interesting things about the heart, because despite me being perceived by a lot of people as being a really healthy guy who exercises a lot, who's quite fit, who takes care of his ticker, I had a shock earlier this year when I began to take a dive into my own heart values. Not only was my lipid panel lit up like a Christmas tree, what are some of the things you should look for beyond LDL if you want to see if your cholesterol is in a good place? Anybody know? Yeah, LP little a. Here's what I say, ApoB is another one. And then I did what's called a CT angiography of my heart. And this is very important, because Since having this done, I've had a lot of other people test their hearts, and people with even pristine lipid panels who get this test of the heart. It's called a Clearly scan or a CT angiography. It involves injection of a radioactive dye and then imaging of the heart. People, including myself, had very high levels of plaque, including myself in an area of the heart called the LVA, which is the so-called widowmaker. And I know that's not fun to think about, but it means that if you're just testing your blood, a lot of times that's not telling you everything that you need to know about your heart. And I learned that this year from some very smart podcast guests. This is my lipid panel from a few weeks ago. If you would have seen it about a year ago, it was lit up like a Christmas tree. It's looking much, much better now. And some of the podcast guests that I learned about, and I'll try and do a good job listing the best ones for you guys to listen to if you want to take a deep dive into this. Barry Tan, Patrick Thute, Stephen Hussey wrote a great book called Understanding the Heart. Thomas Cowan, also a fantastic book called Human Heart, Cosmic Heart. I tell everybody who really wants to truly understand some of the more alternative, edgy, out there concepts in terms of how to take care of your heart should read Stephen Hussey's book and Tom Cowan's book. They're fantastic. So not only did I learn a lot about the heart from them, but I also have really had the light bulb moment in my own life that a lipid panel is not adequate. Like going to the doctor and getting your blood taken for your lipids is not necessarily going to tell you everything that you need to know. And instead, there are newer tests coming out now that can actually tell you not what's going on from a blood cholesterol level, which is all a cholesterol test tells you, right? It's not even testing what your tissue cholesterol levels are in your brain or your heart or your muscle, et cetera. It's just a snapshot of your blood. But there are other tests. Anybody in here ever read the book Prevention Myths? I'm going to throw a lot of books at you guys today. That's also a fantastic book when it comes to understanding all of the different diagnostic imaging procedures out there that really let you take a good look at your heart. Now, one of the biggest takeaways that I had from that book is that CT angiography thing I was telling you about, if you ask your doctor for it and you wind up with high plaque, then you ask your doctor for it again, they'll actually often refuse to give it to you because you have such high levels of radiation. Now, there are ways around that. What kind of things could you take? Like after you fly in an airplane or get a test that involves radiation? Anybody know? There's the top three I can tell you that'll kind of like soak up some of the damage of radiation. Anybody know what they are? Yeah, iodine, that's one proven one. What's that? Activated charcoal. That can help a little bit, but not quite so much. I thought somebody said dark chocolate because that fixes everything. You are correct. The other two are spirulina and shilajit. Shilajit, that dark, tarry, black substance. As a matter of fact, when I flew over here, I took a giant spoonful of shilajit. It tastes like absolute tarry crap, but it's fantastic at soaking up radiation. So anyways, you don't have to get one of these CT angiography scores, though. There is something that's called a CIMT. I learned about this recently. It's very cool. It's called a carotid intima media thickness score. It's a non-invasive ultrasound of the right and the left side of your neck, and it correlates with about 97 to 98% accuracy of what a CT angiography would tell you about your heart. And the only issue with it is that you want to make sure whoever's doing it does a good job and also knows how to interpret it properly. But you could literally get this every week if you really want something that goes way beyond a lipid panel. And remember, my purpose of the talk today is to tell you guys some of the things that nobody else is talking about right now or that I learned that's fresh and brand new. And I'm completely sold on getting some kind of a diagnostic imaging protocol done for my heart every few months for the rest of my life. And this CIMT is very, very effective. If you want to find a good practitioner who actually does a good job with it, read that book, Prevention Myths, or visit the website Vaso Labs, VASO Labs, where there's a list of practitioners that can do a good job with a CIMT score. The other one is called a heart. The heart scan is also very cool. This is a brand new blood measurement. It measures 4 different proteins that are associated with plaque accumulation. It is one that your doctor has to order for you, but it will tell you whether or not you have a high risk for plaque without the expense, the hassle, and the radiation of a CT angiography. So the heart is very important. These are some really, really helpful takeaways that I learned. What I did, just in case you're curious, is this is my stack for heart health. This is everything that I take literally in the morning when I get up, and this is what I did. That I see everybody holding up their cameras. You guys know you do get the slides, unless you're just taking a picture of me. So all of these compounds, I don't need to read them all off to you, the things that I did to reverse my poor heart score. You can see at the bottom, I've got 3 of them down there that would really be more applicable if you test and you have high plaque. high plaque. The other ones would be really, really good for LDL. So I'll put some resources in the show notes where you can hunt down some of this stuff, some of my favorite brands, etc. But that, in my opinion, is what I've developed over the past year as one of the best stacks for heart health. And men have to worry about this more than women, but I've seen poor CT angiography scores and CIMT scores in my female clients as well. So I think everybody should at least test once to see where you're at. So the next thing, we're going to move on to the next H, which is your home. There's two things I want to talk about when it comes to your home. Light and air. I can't talk about light without telling at least one light bulb joke. Are there any, gosh, I'm a dad. I got lot of dad jokes. Is there any chiropractic docs in here? Okay, there's one. How many chiropractic docs does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, but it takes 6 or more visits. Yeah. How about psychiatrists? Any psychiatrists in here? No, none? Oh, good. We can tell lots of. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, but the light bulb really has to want to change. Since I'm American and I'm overseas, I can also tell an American joke. How many polite New Yorkers does it take to change a light bulb? Just the 2 of them. All right, so on to light. I am building a house right now in North Idaho. Some of you may have met my best friend and business partner, Caleb Applegate. Caleb, raise your hand, sitting here in the front row. He did the Shark Tank panel yesterday. I'm actually going to be living about 20 minutes from him. And so I'm building this home in North Idaho, and I've been really geeking out on light because right now my home is pretty outfitted with light, but I've learned some brand new things. When you go outside in the sunlight, you've got somewhere in the range of about 50 to 60% visible light, like that bright bluish green spectrum of light that's mixed with a little bit of near and far and red wavelengths of light, and then a little bit of UVA and UVB, usually like around 3 to 6% UVA and UVB. So one time somebody explained to me that biohacking is basically kind of like taking what we'd experience in a natural environment and trying to recreate that in our office or in our bedroom. This is why we, stand on grounding mats and we experience, fluctuations of cold stress with cold and heat. And it's also a reason you should be thinking about simulating sunlight as much as possible in your indoor living environment. And this means changing things up from the daytime to the twilight to the nighttime. So, during the day, does anybody know if you were going to mix LED and an incandescent lighting, incandescent is kind of the red form of light, LED is kind of the blue form of light, what the percentage that you would want to have in your normal waking spaces if you wanted to simulate daytime sunlight as closely as possible? 75% LED and about 25% incandescent. A lot of people are like, well, Ben, LED, I heard it's bad for you, right? It's got flicker, it produces higher amounts of EMF, it's very concentrated in blue light. Like if anybody looks up right now, we actually don't really have much LED in here, and any of you who are wearing the blue light blocker birth control for your heads probably wouldn't notice it anyways. But there's a little bit of bright overhead fluorescent light here, and that light in isolation is what can cause retinal damage and actually is associated with a lot of sleep issues, a lot of brain fog issues, a lot of energy issues in a lot of people. But there is a form of LED that I've been learning about as I've been building this new house called OLED. And OLED is low flicker, it's low EMF, and you can actually combine it with incandescent. You can literally, it's this simple. All the waking areas of your house have 3/4 of the bulbs as LED and have 1/4 of the bulbs as incandescent. And you're going to get very, very close to sunlight. I've given a few examples of some of the good bulb choices that I've found that are flicker-free OLED, Philips iComfort, and Bond Charge. And then for the incandescent, the only issue is that you want incandescent that's 100 watts or higher. If it's below 100 watts, your incandescent is also going to produce some amount of flicker. And I know we're geeking out a little bit here, but this is the cool stuff that lets you transform your indoor space, your home, your office environment into a space that's very, very close to natural sunlight. And then in twilight, it's completely the opposite. So in the twilight, what percentage of your lighting, in let's say like your dining room where you're eating dinner at night, or maybe like a game room or a den where you're hanging out playing games at night, what would that be? What percentage LED or OLED? 25%. What percentage incandescent? 75%. So you can literally like go and replace all the light bulb cans in your house, and in the waking areas go 75% OLED, 25% incandescent, and in the more relaxing areas 75% incandescent, 25% OLED, and you're going to be very, very close to an indoor lighting environment. I just love this stuff. It's very cool to geek out on how we can take our modern post-industrial living in boxes, traveling in boxes, working in boxes, flying in boxes lifestyle and tweak it to feel better. So a few other things as far as your home light is concerned. Your sleeping spaces, your nighttime spaces, you walk into my bedroom, it looks like an Amsterdam nightclub, right? It's all just red light, red incandescent light. That's what you want in all of your sleeping areas. Now here's what's cool. If this is all just too complex for you and you're like, Ben, I'm not gonna like freaking get a ladder and go through and change all the light bulbs in my house and hear 10 more light bulb jokes. There are 2 companies now, Bond Charge and Block Blue Lights, and this is super cool. It's actually really sexy. I was testing this out in my new home recently. You flip it on once, it's daytime, right? That perfect combination of daytime color. You flip it on twice, it's twilight, switches to twilight, that orangish color. You flip it on 3 times, switches to red. So you can literally have the same light bulb in every can in your house if you use a light bulb like that, and all you do is just flip the switch for whatever time of day it is or when you want to go to sleep. It's super cool. I was shocked when I tried it out. I'm like, no way. So anyways, Bond Charge and Block Blue Light both have those lights that you can change just by flipping the light socket on and off. And then the last spectrum of sunlight, what did I say in addition to incandescent and LED? What's the last spectrum of sunlight that you have if you go outside? UVA and UVB, right? UVA and UVB. UVA, a lot of times that gets thrown under the bus as a carcinogen, and it's going to give you, wrinkled skin like the grandma from Something About Mary on one side of your face if the window is rolled up when you're driving in your car. But UVA is actually not that bad for you. As a matter of fact, UVA is one of the things that can result in your production of vitamin D3, right? So you need some amount of UVA, and then what would UVB help you do? UVB helps you to produce, I have it right up there, you guys have the cheat code right in front of you. Nitric oxide, NO. So UV, that's a error on my part. UVA is NO, UVB is D3, sorry about that. So anyways, those 2 spectrums of light are actually pretty important as well, and you can get those in your home as well. In my office, I actually have these bulbs. One is the nutritional light technology that produces the UVB light, and the other one is a UVA 395 desk lamp that produces UVA light. So when I walk into my office and I flip on the lights, I flip on the UVA, I flip on the UVB, and I can work all day in my office and have it simulate very closely the spectrum of sunlight. And again, this is like more advanced stuff, but you guys are smart. This is what you came here for, is to learn the stuff that nobody else is doing. So anyways, the last thing is wakefulness light. There is a time of day when you want that cortisol awakening response, when you want to tell your body that it's daytime. And this involves exposing yourself to a massive amount of bluish green light that flickers. And so I have a little thing called a Zen Den downstairs where I get up in the morning and I jump up and down on the trampoline, and I do my stupid little foam roller and vibration exercises. And in that room, I have this thing called a Beacon 40. I flip on the Beacon 40. Has anybody seen this thing before? And it just flashes these massive amounts of hyper high flicker LED light. You only want to do that for like 15 or 20 minutes, but man, it wakes you up. And then the other one that I have in my office is called the EVY. Very, very similar. Desktop, almost like a seasonal affective disorder blue light box. I flip that one on for 20 minutes when I start my work day. And between that and these other lighting technologies, I'm basically simulating my body's natural circadian rhythm using one of the most powerful ways to do it, light, with some really, really cool strategies. Now, when you travel, there's some other things you want to think about. For example, right here at the expo are these retimer glasses. I'm wearing the old school ugly versions. They just handed me yesterday these cool, sleek little ones that produce bluish green light for about 20 to 25 minutes when you get up. Anybody seen the retimers? Not the retimers, the human chargers? This is in-ear light therapy. It's little earbuds that you put into your ears, and these are 2 things you can travel with to keep your circadian rhythm aligned. Like just this morning when I woke up, I had a red light hat on and the retimer glasses and some red lights around my waist, and I had my little blue light flicker device going, and it looked like a party in my hotel room. But I felt fantastic because I was charging myself up with all the sunlight that I wouldn't get indoors. And then finally, when I travel, all the lights are off in my hotel room, and I use a tiny little cheapo red light headlamp from Amazon to get around. Super easy. You don't have to use any form of blue light. You guys don't call it a headlamp, do you? Call it a torch? Torch? I don't have a great British accent. With tea and crumpets, my torch. So anyways, you got a red light torch, you got a red light headlamp, and then red light therapy devices. There's another booth that you should check out down here called the Kineon. It's a wraparound red light. There's another one called the Lumaflex. It's a waterproof wraparound red light. These are other really, really cool forms of red light therapy that I've been experimenting with a lot this year. Now, the other part that you got to pay attention to in your home is the air quality. Obviously, EMF is something to think about. Water is something to think about. But the two things I've learned about most this year have been light and air. Zoolander, anybody? You guys seen this scene? Papa, I think I have the black lung. I felt like I had the black lung when I got back. Is Jag Chima or Chris Gethin in here? Jag, you in here? I don't see Jag. He might be. Anyways, Jag and I did a 2-week whirlwind trip of India where the air pollution, the hazard quality was like 500 plus. I do a lot of breath holding and free diving and underwater swimming, and my breath hold time was dramatically reduced after coming back from India, and I realized that we have a serious problem with air pollution. I began to look into it, the association between cognitive performance, having in offices that have poor air quality, meaning half the amount of cognitive performance, which obviously influences productivity and bottom line, but also things like birth defects, death, cancer, asthma, COPD. These are increasingly problematic issues. As a matter of fact, I was talking with Tim earlier. He was even filling me in on how some of the new Boeing aircrafts have special air scrubber systems now that filter the air, and he feels way better and gets way less jet lag. I had a HEPA air filter delivered to my hotel room in Austin on my last trip there because the air quality was bad there, and I slept amazingly. So paying attention to your air quality is a really, really important thing to think about. But one of the cool things, and there is a company right down there at the expo that you can go and check out. I'm going to give you guys a few places to go after you finish this. You can do a little field trip, is AeroFit, and that will do a peak flow measurement. It'll actually do a peak flow measurement. It'll measure inspiratory volume, expiratory volume of actual pressure, inspired and expired, and allow you to get a pretty decent analysis of what's called your peak flow. So in a similar way you could test your heart, you can test how well you're doing with air by using something like that. There's another one called a Spiral Link. It's very similar, but it's a good idea to measure so that what you measure gets managed, right? Like this keeps me eating too much carrot cake at night because I'm measuring my blood glucose. This keeps me, going on a 10-minute postprandial stroll, or, dancing an hour and a half last night at the bar to get my 10,000 steps in. But basically, if you're measuring it, you will manage it, and having something that you can use to regularly assess your lung quality in addition to your heart quality are two important things that I want you to think about as a takeaway from this presentation. So, similar to the heart stack, this is the lung stack that I developed after coming back from India that I use with a lot of my clients who are in air polluted areas, who experience wildfire, pollution, etc. These are all of the things that have actually been studied because I dug into the research to actually help to heal the lungs after they've been exposed to poor air quality. One that I really want you to pay attention to on there that I think everybody should do at least once a week, whether or not you're in wildfire smoke or pollution, is the nebulizer. I talked with the doctor when I was in India, and this is what she uses with almost all of her patients, and she was in Delhi, like a super polluted area. She gets hydrogen peroxide, like 3% food-grade hydrogen peroxide, mixes it in a 10-to-1 saline solution, and then you can get a nebulizer. They're like $40 to $60. You can grab them on Amazon. I have one sitting on my desk, and once a week I put a little bit of that hydrogen peroxide solution in there, put the mask over my face, and while I'm working on my emails and everything, just nebulize that healing, detoxifying hydrogen peroxide saline solution while I'm working. There's another form of liquid glutathione, more expensive, more difficult to get your hands on, called Glutastat, that you can use similarly. And then one of the most profound, a lot of people ask me about, like, what was the most impactful thing that I did for my health this year, or the craziest biohack that I did? And I told them it was probably the follistatin gene therapy, which is the gene therapy that kind of affects the gene responsible for growing muscle. And so I weighed 175 pounds in early March when I did this, and got up to 191 over the course of 14 weeks, changing nothing as far as my weightlifting routine, my calorie intake, my protein intake, my creatine, everything. I didn't grow a third appendage or anything like that. I just put on muscle. And another very, very impactful thing that I did was I learned about the power of exosomes. Did anybody see the study that came out like 3 weeks ago showing a 16% increase in lifespan in rodent models with an exosome infusion? It's crazy. I think that these things are going to be the wave of the future that not replace stem cells, but come very, very close to the popularity of stem cells. Anyways, another thing that I did for my lungs and my brain this year was I used a vial of exosomes and actually nebulized it and used it as a nasal spray. And even though exosomes are expensive, and I realize not everybody has access to them, a few days of a nasal spray of an exosome and nebulizing exosomes, and I literally felt like I was breathing clean air, had the head quality of my head just going clear as a bell. So exosomes, keep your eye on those. I think they're going to become more affordable and more accessible, but as far as what they can do for the brain and for the lungs, it's very, very impressive. And that's another thing that you can literally put into a nebulizer with saline solution and breathe. And if you've ever had a lung injury or traveled in a polluted area, I highly recommend it. Okay, the next is Hormesis. How many of you in here have been told that plants are going to kill you? Plants are going to kill you. See, plants don't have teeth and hooves and claws and nails like animals do, and so they have these built-in plant defense mechanisms. And you know, if you eat them, you're going to get gluten and lectins. And hopefully, Stephen Gundry isn't in here because he's going to crucify me for saying all of this. But basically, look, humans, in my opinion, are smarter than plants. That's the first thing to know, right? Like you can slow prepare and you can ferment and you can cook and you can soak and you can sprout and you can render a lot of these plant defense mechanisms digestible. And sure, if you have celiac disease or a serious leaky gut issue, there may be certain plants that you need to avoid. But I've been thinking a lot about Hormesis this year because if you think about it, there is a lot of stuff we do that can apparently kill us. Right? Like sauna. You stay in the sauna for too long, you get mineral depletion, you'll get hydration, you'll crawl out of there like a wrinkled up raisin, and you'll die of atrial fibrillation. Right? And, cold. If you stay in the cold for too long, now a lot of people are saying it's the equivalent of a shark attack or an airplane accident, and it's going to cause this massive sympathetic nervous system stimulation issue, and everybody in here who's jumped in that cold tub down there in the expo is also going to have a heart attack and die of atrial fibrillation. And then you've got calorie restriction, right? It's going to shut down your hormone process and cause your metabolism to slow. The plants and herbs and spices that I mentioned, the lovely sourdough bread, that's going to cause you to paint the back of the toilet seat for a week. Oxygen, breathing too much oxygen is something that creates excess oxidative stress. Somebody asked me yesterday, they said, well, I shouldn't do ozone or hyperbaric oxygen, right? Because that's going to create too much oxygen. Look, this is all based on a very old school form of science that goes back to like the 60s called the free radical theory of aging. The free radical theory of aging, anybody here ever heard of that? It's the idea that if you get exposed to free radicals, that can accelerate the aging process. And so based on that, what they did was they started giving like rodent models, yeast models, C. elegans, et cetera, a massive amount of antioxidants to battle all these free radicals. And guess what happened? They live shorter, not longer, when they shut down the free radical and the oxidative stress production. What happens if an athlete takes a bunch of antioxidants like vitamin C or vitamin E after they work out? Do they get stronger or less strong? They get less strong because their body doesn't have a chance to mount the proper hormetic response to the workout. You're shutting down the body's own natural inflammatory process, and you're not getting all the mitochondrial production and the muscle fiber production that you're looking for from exercise. So the idea of Hormesis, and I've just been thinking about this a lot lately, is you want to inflict small amounts of damage on your body all day long from a lot of these things that are now getting a little bit vilified, because the new free radical theory of aging is called the mitochondrial free radical theory of aging, and it's based on just about the complete opposite. When you throw stresses at your body upregulates its own antioxidant production. It produces things like superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase and all these internal antioxidants that actually cause the cells to be able to handle more and more oxidative stress. This is even one of the reasons why I drink almost every day. Hooray for alcohol. I have a small glass of wine or sometimes like a little mezcal tequila with some soda water or lemon. And that actually is something that if you look at epidemiological studies, 0 to 1 drinks in females, 1 to 2 drinks in males, is associated with a longer lifespan, not a shorter lifespan. Now, those of you who think you can just squeeze that all into one night and go alcohol-free the rest of the week, don't do that. Okay, the dose is the poison, right? If I told you running is good, and you go out and run 27 miles on a Saturday, your muscles are going to look like World War II. But if you just go for like a 1.5, 2 mile run every day, that's a reasonable amount of hormetic stress that your body is able to recover from. So I want to encourage a lot of you here today, like, don't be super orthorexic, right? Embrace alcohol, embrace some hard exercise, embrace some sauna sessions. You want to climb out of there because it's so hot. Get cold every once in a while and don't worry about it, impacting your hormones deleteriously. Eat a wide variety of plants and herbs and spices, and the more that you do that, the more equipped your body will become to be able to handle that stuff. So this idea of hormesis is just something that I think is fascinating, and I see a lot of people now trying to live almost too safe of a life when you do, in fact, want some sublethal stressors thrown at your body. Sublethal stressors, right? It's not like a machine gun that's going to take you out. It's just like a teddy bear with a potato gun, right? Just like pelting you here and there every once in a while during the day. Your body bounces back and gets stronger, and you don't die. All right. Well, we all know Tim Gray is a fan of Cinnabon. You know what he's wondering right there? The age-old question that all biohackers wonder. Is that going to break a fast? You're here to hear it first. Cinnabon will not break a fast. Because science. I love being in a position of scientific authority. Anyways, though, I've done a lot of podcasts lately about this emerging trend of GLP-1 agonists. Anybody in here ever try it? You don't need to raise your hand because you probably have a Ozempic face. Anyways, GLP-1 agonists, this idea that if you trigger GLP-1, it's a satiety-inducing hormone and you feel fuller and you don't want to eat food and sometimes you feel nauseous around your favorite foods. But how many of you in here would say that there are probably some side effects associated with that strategy? And that we may even be possibly running one giant pharmaceutically funded human experiment because we see pancreatitis and gut issues, even depression, because people are missing out on some of the dopaminergic-inducing compounds found in food. There's a lot of issues with this GLP-1 agonist, not to mention the expense and the cash factor that they produce for the pharmaceutical industry. So I've been doing a lot of interviews. Some of them I haven't even released yet on alternatives to GLP-1. One is based on your microbiome. Satiety and your microbiome are pretty intricately intertwined, meaning that if you can raise up levels of butyricum, of some lactobacillus species, and of the Akkermansia and the bifidobacteria, you can actually get a natural gut-based increase in not only the GLP-1 that a GLP-1 injectable agonist is going to give you, but also two other satiety-inducing hormones called CCK and PPY. And so you can actually hit hunger from a variety of different standpoints if you target the microbiome. And this is as simple as literally taking an Akkermansia-based supplement when you wake up in the morning. And I've tried it, and you feel very satiated. Like breakfast is more like an option, not a necessity when you do this. Another option, and by the way, Pendulum does a good one called, I think it's actually called GLP-1. Another one is a very bitter compound. It's kind of funny, because I interviewed this guy from New Zealand. I didn't release the interview yet. It'll come out soon. And he'd done a bunch of research on all these things that could satiate the appetite. He's like, we found one of the most bitter compounds known to humankind. It's so bitter. We couldn't make it palatable for you to actually eat, but it kind of bypasses your stomach, triggers the bitter receptors in your small intestine, and induces this massive feeling of satiety if you eat it an hour before a meal. And so, first part of this story is I tried it. It's called Calocurb. The active ingredient is called amarasate. It's from hops extract, like beer, and it works like gangbusters. But the second thing is that I thought, okay, so how bitter could this stuff be? So this is kind of a funny story. I have my son video record this. I broke open a capsule of it, and I put it on my tongue. It tasted like the most bitter, skunky beer I've ever had in my life. It was horrible, like totally unpalatable. But then what I did, has anybody in here ever thrown a Miracle Berry party? All right, this is probably the most important thing you're going to learn at this entire expo. Miracle berries, if they coat your tongue, make anything that's sour or bitter taste amazingly sweet. Some people will even use them for weight loss because the foods that they don't like to eat actually taste really good. So apple cider vinegar tastes like sweet, sweet honey. And a cherry tomato tastes like the sweetest grape you've ever had in your life. Plain yogurt tastes like vanilla ice cream. Beer tastes like Kool-Aid. And you can actually get these miracle berries. They sell them as like little tablets on Amazon. The tablets are even more powerful than the actual berry. You roll them around your mouth for like 10 minutes. They coat your mouth, and they make everything that you eat taste sweet. So I did it without the miracle berry, and then I did it again, and the miracle berry literally tasted like Nerds candy, like the sweetest sugary candy ever. So kind of a cool experiment, a little bit of a rabbit hole, but this Calocurb stuff also works. And then the last thing is ketones. Exogenous ketones have actually been shown to cause a GLP-1 and appetite satiating release, very, very similar to a GLP-1 agonist. I mean, there's a booth downstairs, what's it called, Heal F, something like that. They've got those liquid ketone shots, and it's a perfect example of a ketone that helps to satiate appetite. So when it comes to hunger, there are definitely things that you can do that go beyond getting these trendy GLP-1 agonists. And those are 3 of the ones that I've actually looked into, done podcasts on this year, and found to work pretty well. All right, coming up on the end here, guys. We got 2 more to go. How are we doing? You learning some stuff? Okay, so who saw the 2 biohackers on their first date video? It's so funny. And I will have nothing for the next 48 hours. I was going to order that. I'll link to the video in the show notes if you guys want to see it, but as you can see from the screenshot, it's pretty funny. So this is the idea of stacking. Stacking. Taking a lot of these things that have an impact on cellular and mitochondrial function, stacking them together for great effect. When I went and hung out with Gary Brecka, who's also here, fantastic guy, in Miami, we stayed at his house for a few days, and he introduced me to his Superhuman Protocol, where you lay on a PEMF mat for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then you exercise with oxygen therapy, like exercise breathing from an oxygen mask, very similar to the cell gym that's downstairs, except it'd be as though you're riding on a bike while you're using that. I use one called a Libo 2 for it, which I'm using actually in this photo here. And then you finish with red light therapy, because once the cell membranes are open and you're oxygenated, the photonic absorption of red light increases ATP production, and you actually feel really good afterwards. So that one's called the Superhuman Protocol. And I've been starting to implement some of these things with my clients as strategies. So the Superhuman Protocol is one. Another one, I flew down to Phoenix about 4 weeks ago, and I met with this brilliant guy named Thomas Inclinon. He trains everyone from some of the best power and strength and NFL athletes on the planet to people who are recovering from cancer, have cancer, cachexia, and are trying to get fit somehow again without being able to do normal exercises in the gym. His protocol is electrical muscle stimulation. Does anybody here ever use like the Catalyst suit or one of these EMS suits? You pull on the EMS suit, and then you combine that with oxygen and red light therapy. And he is getting fantastic results with both his patients as well as his high-performance athletes with just 15 minutes per day of that. Actually, it's pretty hard. I went down to his clinic and shot a podcast I released on YouTube a few days ago, and I could barely walk up the stairs in the airport after the protocol that he put me through. You don't have to go that hard, but combining electrical muscle stimulation with oxygen with light would be another example of something that I've discovered this year is like a cool hack, a cool stack for those of you who like to do things like, jump on a trampoline with a coffee enema and an oxygen training mask and do all the things together. So another one is what I call the Boundless Protocol. I named that one after my book. It's exercise with blood flow restriction, with grounding, with cold, with red light, with oxygen. And that's actually that picture. That's exactly what I'm doing right there. I do this 3 times a week. I have an oxygen delivery system called a Libo 2 next to a Vasper, which says grounding, blood flow restriction, and cold. And then behind that, I don't have it shown in this photo, but what I've added now is a giant red light behind it. So I'm getting photonic absorption while I'm doing that. So those of you who are like building home gyms, building your own setups, these are some of the cool, more advanced things that give you a ton of what's called mitochondrial proliferation post-workout and enhance your oxygen absorption and your ability to build new muscle during the actual workout. And then the final one I mentioned, it was that protocol that I did, the follistatin gene therapy. This guy down in, he's operating out of Cabo and Dubai right now. He has something called an anti-aging package. You travel and see him. He does the follistatin gene therapy for muscle, an NK killer cell infusion, a stellate ganglion nerve block. Anybody done one of these before? It's literally like an ultrasound-guided injection on one side of the neck and the other side of the neck. Totally resets your vagus nerve. Your heart rate variability goes through the roof for weeks. You sit up from the table and you feel like you've had a glass of red wine and smoked a joint all at the same time, and your stress levels are just gone. It's crazy, but it obviously takes someone who knows what they're doing because it's right in there by the carotid artery. Anyways, though, the stellate ganglion nerve block that he does, and then an NK killer cell infusion for the immune system. And these are some more advanced regenerative medicine protocols. There's another guy here at the conference, Dr. Matt Cook, and he can do some very, very similar kind of cool, edgy, anti-aging things. So some of this stuff is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more next level, pretty cool to look into. Now, I've thrown a lot at you. I realize this has been a lot of stuff, a lot of things to do, right? And we can get FOMO. When you're walking around a conference like this, right? You can get the collagen facial and the red light therapy in your ears and the spermidine enema and all of the things. Now, I interviewed this guy. He really got me thinking about this. I interviewed two people. First of all, I interviewed Julie Clark, who's beating most of the top anti-aging biohackers and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and tech billionaires with a protocol that involves about $70 worth of supplements a month, playing pickleball, hanging out with her kids, and walking in the sunshine. Right? She makes, I think, less than $100,000 a year, and she's one of the slowest aging people on record on the face of the planet, based on true age epigenetic marker testing. It's a fantastic interview. You should listen to it. I also interviewed this guy named Justin Russ. I don't even make an attempt at his last name. He's super cool, though. He gets up every morning, and he has his glass of water, and he goes and sits in the sauna, and he just stares at the wall for 30 minutes in the sauna, doing absolutely freaking nothing. How many of you in here think you could do that right now? After I interviewed him, I've started to do silence in the morning. I've made it up to 7 minutes before my head starts to explode. Okay, but this idea of stepping away from all the madness, of taking a little bit of time to be quiet, of allowing yourself to be still. There are apps that I use for this, like Ali Boothroyd on YouTube for non-sleep deep rest protocols. I do this after lunch sometimes, just climb away from all the emails and the phone calls and give myself like 20 to 45 minutes in the middle of the day to be quiet. Same thing when I get up. I pray, I read my Bible, and then I just sit there and listen to God. And this is like a new thing that I've been doing, because a lot of times I'll talk, I'll read, I'll do all my things, but I don't just carve out the time for the still, small silence. And it doesn't have to be every day, you guys. This could literally be like a Saturday. You're just quiet for 30 minutes. You just go sit in the sauna and stare at the wall of the sauna. Without an oxygen mask or an electrical muscle stimulation suit or something smeared on your face, you just sit there. Because sometimes less is more, and we are all at an expo and in an industry where sometimes you need to remind yourself that you don't have to do it all, right? And you run into a lot of people who are just like cigarette smoking, gin chugging great grandmas in Sardinia, Italy, who are walking their goats up a hill. And they're living longer than a lot of these people who are spending their lives cold and hungry and libidoless and starving inside a hyperbaric and a cryotherapy chamber. So I think that just to drive this point home, because it's going to get really busy after this, right? You're all going to go downstairs and there's going to be lots of things and flashy lights and all sorts of things to try. Let's just take this opportunity right now, because they haven't kicked me off stage yet. I have a bracelet that I wear. It's from my handbook for life, the Bible. It's from Psalm 46:10, and it says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still and know that I am God. And being still is sometimes one of the best ways to listen to yourself and listen to God. So we're going to take about the next 30 seconds and just enjoy a little bit of stillness. You can close your eyes, breathe. Take a few deep breaths. As you breathe, think about what it is that you're grateful for. Silence is a good time to be grateful. What are you really, really grateful for? What do you have in your life right now that you don't deserve? You don't deserve it. Maybe you've been really blessed with your career, with your friends, with your marriage, with your relationships, with your wealth, with something that you just got. And you know how you got it, but you got it. Just breathe that into your heart center. Really feel it. And then smile to yourself, because motion creates emotion. Smile to yourself and open your eyes. And we're especially grateful for all the dads in this room. Thank you to all you dads in this room. I've got some gifts for you. Not only did I bring about 10 extra bracelets, the first people who come up here and ask me for them can have them. But if you look at the screen up there, I've got a couple of offers for you guys. If you get my books anywhere, man, you guys are fast. I thought you were going to wait until I was done talking, but there you go. Wear them in style. Wear them, be proud. I know. She got one, you didn't. All right. So, anywhere you get my books, email me, publishing@bengreenfieldlife.com, and I will give you a massive amount of bonuses, all listed there. If you grab a couple of my books, Boundless or Boundless Parenting, either one. And there are some that are even right down here at the expo. I will send you all those other books straight to your inbox for free. All you got to do is email your receipt to publishing@bengreenfieldlife.com. Finally, I alluded to my best friend and business partner here in the audience, Mr. Caleb Applegate. He and I have been working tirelessly behind the scenes for the past year on one of the coolest projects I've ever seen in my life that I have never announced from stage ever. This is the first time. You guys are the first people hearing about this in the history of health and biohacking. We have created one of the most impressive, informative, transformative websites that you are ever going to experience in your life. It's called The Life Network. We opened up invitations today. If you scan that QR code, you are officially invited to join the revolution that Caleb and I are creating. All of your favorite experts in your back pocket, AMAs and Q&As with me, raw podcasts, debates, workout programs, everything you need at your fingertips, curated by me and my team. It's about $14 to $15 a month, and this is literally thousands and thousands of dollars of information that we've created on a very, very slick platform. Trust me, Caleb came out of the metaverse and the crypto space, and he knows how to make very helpful, very useful, very transformative websites that are going to give you essentially with the equivalent of paying $5,000 a month to be coached by me. Right there on a website. You're going to have complete access to it. Many of the experts who you've heard speak at this conference are also part of that platform. So scan the QR code to go to bengreenfieldlife.com/LN, like bengreenfieldlife.com/life network, bengreenfieldlife.com/LN. Finally, if you want all the resources, the goodies, the presentation slides, everything else, go to bengreenfieldlife.com/HOS24. You guys, I'll be here all day. I love to answer your questions. I love to help you. Thank you for being you. Give yourselves a huge hand today for taking a step towards transformation. Thank you guys so much.